What once sounded like a joke is now turning into legislation. A Republican lawmaker is pushing for Greenland to become America's 51st state. As President Donald Trump renews his long-standing push to bring the Danish territory under U.S. control. Florida Congressman Randy Fine is introducing a bill on Monday that would authorize President Trump to take any steps necessary to acquire Greenland and begin the process of making it part of the United States. Fine told Fox News Digital that U.S. sovereignty over Greenland is in the world's interest. He said, and I quote, "I think it is in the world's interest for the United States to exert sovereignty over Greenland." Fine stressed that Congress would still have the final say on statehood, but said the bill would fast-track the process and formally back Trump's efforts. Under the proposal, Congress would later decide whether Greenland officially becomes a state. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed he will meet Danish officials this week, with Greenland high on the agenda. Trump has floated the idea of buying Greenland since his first term, citing its strategic location in the Arctic, its proximity to Russia, and vast reserves of critical minerals. Republicans argue Greenland plays a key role in global security, especially as tensions with Moscow rise. Fine echoed that argument while also claiming Greenlanders would benefit from U.S. rule. Fine pointed to World War II, saying Denmark could not defend Greenland while the United States stepped in to protect the island. But the proposal has also sparked unease. Some Republican lawmakers were rattled after the White House declined to rule out military force to acquire Greenland. Asked whether he would support military action, Fine favors a voluntary path. Fine also criticized Greenland's socialist governance, arguing it is not in U.S. interests for such a vast territory between America and Russia to be run that way. Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress alone has the power to admit new states. The process would require Congress to authorize statehood, Greenland to draft a state constitution approved by its residents, and a final congressional vote signed by the president. For now, Greenland remains Danish territory, but with legislation on the table and diplomacy underway, the idea of America's 51st state is no longer just talk. It's moving into official territory.
Yeah, let me start with challenge you a bit on the second part of your question. What I always do is when people are helpful for the alliance and are doing good stuff, and I believe that Donald Trump is doing the right things for NATO, by encouraging us all to spend more, to equalize this what the US is spending. We had a very successful summit in The Hague, where we decided on the 5% defense spending, including 3.5% from core defense. I'm absolutely convinced without Donald Trump, we would never have had that result at the summit in The Hague. We have now the whole of the alliance on this famous 2%, which we announced in 2014 in Wales. I'm absolutely convinced without Donald Trump, we would not have the whole alliance at this moment on the 2% and now working towards the 3.5%, incredible steps. So when I praise somebody, it is based on facts, and I believe the facts are there. We might disagree, but that is how I see this. As NATO Secretary General, it is my role to make sure that the whole of the alliance is as secure and safe as possible. And I applaud the fact that our colleagues who are bordering on the Arctic have come together, have worked together, and have decided to get NATO more and more involved. This was the discussion in Brussels I referred to in answering a few previous questions. Earlier last year in September, and other moments last year when they discussed the High North. And we are now building on that. You've seen some announcements by the Brits and the Germans today. We are working now together to see how we can basically together as an alliance, including our 7 members, our allies bordering on the High North, on the Arctic, to work together to indeed build that next step, which is crucial. That's the United States, that's Canada, that's Iceland, Denmark, and the other European countries bordering on the High North, all 7, but of course with the whole of the alliance. By the way, as we speak, we see Denmark at the moment already speeding up their investments when it comes to defense, not only generally, but also when it comes to unique capabilities to defend territories like Greenland. So they're buying more F-35s, they're working on air-to-air refueling, they have bought these P-8 Boeings, the long-range drones, billions invested there in American equipment necessary to defend Denmark, NATO, but also territories like Greenland. So we are really working together here. And my only worry is, how do we stay safe against the Russians, against any other adversary? Look at what China is doing in rapidly building up its own armed forces, but also North Koreans and others who might wish us ill, and not well at least. And therefore, that's my role, and I think we will get there.
So no crisis whatsoever?
No, not at all, and I think we are really working in the right direction here.
So a group of European countries led by the UK and Germany are apparently planning to increase, or actually to have some military presence on the Arctic, on Greenland. Could you tell us more about these plans? Would it be like the Baltic Sentry of the last year initiative, or how would it look, and how far the plans have gone? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And let me first of all stress that all allies agree on the importance of the Arctic and Arctic security, because we know that with sea lanes opening up, there is a risk that the Russians and the Chinese will be more active. And as you know, there are 8 Arctic countries, 7 are within NATO, including the United States and Canada, and 5 countries in Europe, including Denmark through Greenland and Iceland and Norway, Finland and Sweden. And then there is 1 Arctic country outside NATO, and that is Russia. But you could also argue that by now China has almost become a sort of Arctic country, not geographically, but at least by the sheer amount of their activities and interest in the region. So that has led last year already to some debates, very successful concluded debates in NATO on how as an alliance, together with our 7 Arctic allies, we have to work together to make sure that the Arctic stays safe. And currently we are discussing the next step to that, how to make sure that we give practical follow-up on those discussions to make sure that as an alliance we do everything collectively and through our individual allies to make sure that the Arctic stays safe, as we all agree that that has to be a priority.
You have repeatedly stated that Russia is the main threat to NATO and to Europe, of course, understandably. We all understand why. What is your comment, approximation on latest statements from Donald Trump, who said that if necessary he will take military action on Greenland? And I'm just going to read it. Commissioner Kubilius from European Commission has said that EU members are obliged to come to Denmark's assistance under EU treaty if faced with military aggression. And as we know, 23 countries of EU are also members of NATO. Gospodine Plenković, including Croatia, yes. Gospodine Plenković, evo isto vaš komentar, molim na to. Hvala.
Yes, well, on that question, and it is a little bit, I think, repeating my previous reaction, but thank you very much for that important question. And I think what is at core here, and to the core of this question is that we all make that same analysis, and there is no debate or discussion about that. The analysis is sound and is there that when it comes to the High North, the Arctic region, I was myself visiting Iceland only I think 6 or 8 weeks ago, and we also extensively discussed this, and I was in Norway and visiting other allies, discussing with the US and with Canada. I was with Prime Minister Carney last week in Paris discussing the importance of the Arctic. So collectively, as an alliance, and particularly, of course, the 7 countries who are bordering on the region, we do make this analysis that the collective defense is crucial. We all see that through changes in weather patterns that sea lanes are opening up. We have to make sure that we do everything to protect that region. It is a vital part of NATO territory. And that is exactly why, where in the past NATO was not so much involved when it came to the Arctic, that since 2025, on the request by the 7 high north allies who are bordering on the Arctic, that NATO has become more involved. This has led to a few, as I said, very successful discussions within the NATO alliance with our ambassadors in Brussels and our ministers. We discussed this importance, and currently we are working on the next steps to make sure that indeed we collectively protect what is at stake here.
Allow me to add a few words related to Greenland, Denmark, and the signals that have been coming from the US administration. We have been communicating with the Danish government, with Prime Minister Frederiksen. We were in Paris together last week. And this week, according to announcement, there will be a meeting with State Secretary Rubio. The message of all allies and all EU members is that allies have to respect each other, including the US as the largest NATO member. It is obvious what Secretary General said, that there is some concern for the area of Arctic, which includes Greenland, but I am confident that with discussion we can find a solution that will ensure security for the US, and it will make sure that Greenland is a part of Denmark, although it's not in the EU, but it is clear that it is within the authority of Denmark. That's why high-quality dialogue is necessary, and it can definitely resolve this situation for the benefit of the global security.